What is up? Good mic work. Back at you with episode 433. I sincerely apologize for this episode coming up a little bit late this week. I had an incredibly busy beginning of the week at work, and I just wasn't able to get up here at my regular scheduled time. And this is very rare that I'm late like this, so I do apologize for the short delay. But luckily I'm up here now, and there's a lot to talk about because I'm going to review this past week's Monday Night Raw and Smackdown Live, and Raw in particular had a lot of big storyline angles start to develop, and there's a lot to talk about in regards to Raw. Smackdown had its share of things as well, but I probably won't spend too much time on Smackdown, and I will finally address the YouTube issues later on at the end of the commentary. A lot of people have been asking me my opinions on the YouTube and advertising and monetization issues and all that crap that all of the wrestling YouTubers and content creators are going through, and it's really affecting a lot of channels out there, mine included, but I feel particularly bad for the bigger YouTube channels out there. People with hundreds of thousands and millions of subs in some cases are getting royally fucked over ad revenue-wise by YouTube and this crazy new policy of theirs. So I've kind of stayed out of it up until now, but I'll finally discuss a little bit of it at the end of the video. And if there's any other noteworthy wrestling news I get into, I will touch on that later on as well. Let's start right now with Monday Night Raw, though, because, of course, we're right off the heels of Extreme Rules last Sunday. If you want to hear my review of that pay-per-view, I did come up here on Sunday night and give my reaction to the show. It wasn't a very long video, 20 minutes or so, but it's up there in the top right-hand corner. You can give it a click if you have not yet seen it. But, of course, Samoa Joe came out of Extreme Rules victorious in the Fatal 5-Way #1 Contenders match, and he will be getting the title shot against Brock Lesnar at Great Balls of Fire. And we all speculated right after Extreme Rules was over that there's got to be some sort of a confrontation on Raw with Samoa Joe and Paul Heyman. It was almost a given. And I was really looking forward to that because this match with Joe and Brock I find incredibly interesting. I didn't pick Samoa Joe to win the Fatal 5-Way. I picked Seth Rollins. I even had Finn Balor as a close second, but I really wasn't thinking about Samoa Joe. But in the end, I love the fact that the WWE went with him because this gives fans something fresh, something new, something that's intriguing, something that's interesting. I haven't heard anybody shit on this idea of putting Samoa Joe in the ring with Brock Lesnar. This is a great matchup, and it's kind of ironic. It was 1 year ago, right around this time, that Brock Lesnar returned to the UFC and beat Mark Hunt, and he was a big kind of Samoan-looking guy. So it almost feels like he's wrestling his counterpart here 1 year later, taking on a guy that physically resembles his opponent from last year in the UFC. But anyway, that's completely beside the point. I'm going to jump all around Monday Night Raw. I know Samoa Joe didn't open the show, but I feel like I need to talk about this angle first because it was the biggest thing that took place on Raw, and it was good. God damn it, was this segment amazing. Samoa Joe comes out there and starts cutting a promo first. We figured that he would. And he says that basically he's envious of Brock Lesnar. He wants everything that Brock Lesnar has. He wants the money, he wants the fame, he wants the easy schedule, he wants Paul Heyman as his advocate, and he wants to bang Sable every night in his jacuzzi out on his gigantic deck in his mansion. He wants Brock Lesnar's life, and he is vowing to take everything from Brock. He says he does not fear Brock Lesnar at all, and at Great Balls of Fire, he's going to take him down for the Universal title, and that's when we finally see the appearance of Paul Heyman, who says, "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman." The crowd popped so hard. Everybody was waiting for Paul Heyman to come out. Everybody was hoping that Paul Heyman would come out. And when he finally appeared, the fans really took notice. And he got in the ring and he talked to Samoa Joe much like he talked to Finn Balor a couple weeks ago, basically saying that he has respect for Samoa Joe and so does Brock Lesnar. However, Brock Lesnar doesn't fear Samoa Joe any more than Samoa Joe fears Brock Lesnar. And he says Samoa Joe might not know what he's getting into. And he mentioned that as him and Brock were talking about all the 5 participants and all the 5 contenders and who it could possibly be, they viewed Samoa Joe as their worst case scenario. But he tells Samoa Joe that Brock Lesnar is his worst case scenario. So very good promo by both guys. I liked Samoa Joe's intensity. I liked his fearlessness. Of course, Paul Heyman is a god on the microphone and beloved by all of us wrestling fans. And then it got real good. I mean, if that shit wasn't good enough, I loved the ending. And the best part about this ending was that the microphones were dropped. Joe dropped his microphone. Paul Heyman, I think out of fear, dropped his microphone. And Samoa Joe gets right in Paul's face, and the camera is able to pick up the audio. So people watching at home on TV could hear this, but the live audience could not. And it was great. Samoa Joe just looks Paul Heyman right in the face. He's like, "Hey, I got to tell you something. what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my arm around your neck and I'm going to choke you out, and you're going to feel your neck tense up and your body's going to go limp and you're going to experience pain like you've never felt before, and says all of this in a very, very calm voice and just tells Paul Heyman for like 2 or 3 minutes what is about to happen to him. And Paul Heyman can do nothing about it. Brock Lesnar is not in the building. Samoa Joe's got Heyman completely cornered in the ring. Heyman can't fight his way out or run away. He is fucked. And then after Samoa Joe gets done describing what he's going to do to Paul Heyman, he makes good on his promise and grabs him, chokes him out right there in the middle of the ring. And Paul Heyman is twitching and choking and frothing at the mouth and the whole deal. And I loved it. I mean, it was awesome. I don't know what this means for Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar. I don't know if this turns them babyface necessarily. I mean, I know everything's not black and white. There's shades of gray now, and not every match has to be babyface versus a heel. But technically, this is a heel versus heel main event at Great Balls of Fire. So if they want to have one guy go into this match with some heat or play the bigger role as a heel, I guess they have achieved that with Samoa Joe, having him choke out a weaker man. You know, a lot of people can say that's a cowardly thing, but I think Joe makes it work. Joe doesn't seem like that cowardly heel that will run away from anything. He's trying to send a message to Brock Lesnar, and if he's going to choke out his fat advocate, then so be it. And it doesn't matter if Paul Heyman is 1/10 the strength of Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe's going to beat him up anyway to deliver the message that he wants to deliver to Brock. So the whole segment felt really good, and I really loved the ending before Samoa Joe choked out Paul Heyman, the way he talked to him like that with no microphone. I thought that was great. One of the best segments we have seen on Raw in a long time, which is ironic because last week on Raw we saw the This Is Your Life segment, which was one of the worst things we've ever seen on Raw, and they follow that right up with one of the best segments we've ever seen with Samoa Joe and Paul Heyman. So I am very excited for this match with Brock Lesnar at Great Balls of Fire. Right now, I got to stick by my original prediction, and that might change as we get closer to the pay-per-view here, but I don't see Samoa Joe winning this belt. I just don't. Not after Brock had that long program with Goldberg, winning the title at WrestleMania. Great Balls of Fire, that's where he's going to drop it? Come on, give me a break. I mean, unless WWE plans on having this stupidly named pay-per-view every single year, every single July from now on, and they want the very first Great Balls of Fire to be memorable, much like the very first Bad Blood was memorable or other pay-per-views like that, if that's the case, they might want to have Samoa Joe beat Brock Lesnar. I mean, maybe they want to transition Joe into that next Brock Lesnar character because he's on the roster every week. He's not sitting at home for 3 or 4 months at a time. So WWE could do a couple of things here, in my opinion. They could keep it simple and just have a really good, brutal, hard-fought match with Samoa Joe and Brock Lesnar where Brock Lesnar wins and defeats Samoa Joe, but defeats him in an incredibly hard-fought battle and even earns his respect after the match for the fight that Samoa Joe put up. And maybe Samoa Joe just barely loses. Maybe Brock just squeaks by the skin of his teeth. Maybe there's even a situation where Samoa Joe's got Brock Lesnar choked out and he's unconscious, but the referee is knocked out and he can't check the arms of Brock Lesnar to see if he's out and ring the bell. He can't do any of that. Maybe Samoa Joe has Brock pinned at some point and the referee is out, and then Brock Lesnar ends up coming back and winning the match after that. That could be a scenario. Or WWE could go balls to the wall crazy and they could do a whole turn. You know, maybe this whole thing with Samoa Joe and Paul Heyman is a big setup. Don't forget, Paul Heyman turned on Brock Lesnar 15 years ago at the Survivor Series when he joined up with the Big Show. I think all of us have speculated over the years that maybe Paul Heyman could do something like this again. And when you look at the current roster right now in WWE, Samoa Joe really is the only guy on there that can even come close to being compared with Brock Lesnar as far as how tough he is, how scary he is, how he can fucking kill you if he wants to. And I still don't even think Samoa Joe is at Brock's level. I mean, Brock is in amazing shape. He's a trained fighter. You know, Samoa Joe, you know, some people make fun of him for being fat. That doesn't bother me at all. I think Samoa Joe is awesome. His physique is in no way, shape, or form a deal breaker for me, much like it's not a deal breaker for me with Kevin Owens. I think both of those guys are awesome. So, you know, the physical difference between the two, you know, Brock's much bigger. He's taller, he's in better shape, and I think he's definitely stronger than Samoa Joe. So on paper, how can you really pick Samoa Joe to win this thing if you're looking at this thing as a shoot? or whatever. But still, despite all of that, I think Samoa Joe is the most credible guy WWE has on their roster that can actually be compared to Brock Lesnar on that level, as far as his ability to kill you. So I think it's a good match, and it's definitely kind of a fantasy match for a lot of us fans. A lot of people have speculated over the years, what if Samoa Joe and Brock Lesnar got in the ring together? How fucking awesome would that be? We will probably never ever see that match. And here we are, some random-ass pay-per-view in the WWE entitled Great Balls of Fire, and we're going to get this fantasy match. And it's very interesting because, I just think WWE can have a lot of fun with this if they want, and I mention that in almost every commentary or any major pay-per-view match. I always beg the WWE. I get down on my hands and knees and beg them to have some fun. I think we can all agree that WWE and Monday Night Raw in particular could really use a shakeup, could really use a change of pace, a breath of fresh air, just something different for us fans to see. We're seeing the same shit essentially every single week on Monday Night Raw. We're seeing the same type of segments. We're seeing matches made the same way. We're seeing the same scenarios, the same finishes. Basically every single week, they're just shuffling the talent around. It's extremely formulaic, and I think we can all agree that it's getting old as shit. So this is WWE's chance to do something fun. They have a chance to make Samoa Joe here. They don't want to bury the guy. Brock Lesnar can't go into Great Balls of Fire and just suplex Samoa Joe 13 times and pin him in a lackluster match that kind of falls flat. This thing needs to be a barn burner. And I don't care who wins. This is a match where I think Joe can be made even by losing to Brock, especially if he puts up a good fight, especially if he has Brock beat a couple of times, maybe with the referee knocked out, or anything like that. If they want to keep the belt on Brock Lesnar, I think they can do that. And they can still make Samoa Joe in the process. However, if they really want to launch Samoa Joe and they want to make him a contender and a major player on the roster, then shit, they could have him beat Brock Lesnar. They could even go with a schmaz finish, and we can't rule out a DQ yet. We can't rule out a count out. Maybe Samoa Joe wins this match, but he doesn't win the belt. Maybe he's the first guy to beat Brock Lesnar via disqualification or count out, and that can set up a rematch. But now you got Summerslam on the horizon. We had heard prior to his injury that Braun Strowman was going to be the guy to challenge Brock at SummerSlam, and I think that match can still happen, but, depending on what Strowman's diagnosis is, he might not be in ring shape for that. So maybe they're setting up Samoa Joe here to have a match with Brock at Great Balls of Fire and then a rematch at SummerSlam if Strowman can't go. Don't forget, Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns still have to tie up all of their loose ends. So if Braun Strowman is going to be out of action beyond Great Balls of Fire, it's going to be really hard to get him back on TV, have him wrap up business with Roman Reigns, and then go on to face Brock at SummerSlam. You're only going to have a few weeks to prepare for that, and that's not enough time. So maybe WWE's eyeballing Samoa Joe as Brock Lesnar's summer opponent, and they're going to put Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns back together when Strowman comes back for his injury, and they can have their big blow-off match at SummerSlam, and you get Strowman and Roman and Brock and Joe. I also mentioned in my Great Balls of Fire reaction video that since they're going with Joe and Brock, maybe they could do something crazy and throw Kurt Angle in the mix as a special referee. And lo and behold, after Samoa Joe is done choking out Paul Heyman on Raw, he has a backstage confrontation with Kurt Angle, where Kurt Angle's kind of yelling at him for choking out Paul Heyman, and Samoa Joe kind of asks Kurt, hey, are you in my way? If anybody gets in my way of the Universal title, I'm going to choke them out. So I have one question to ask you. Are you in my way? And then Seth Rollins butts in and says, no, get out of the way, Kurt. I'm in your way, motherfucker. I want to challenge you to a match tonight. And then Kurt Angle makes that match in the main event. So Kurt Angle's teasing of a confrontation with Samoa Joe here, I think, is very telling. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Kurt is the special guest referee for one of the Samoa Joe and Brock Lesnar matches. Maybe not at Great Balls of Fire, but maybe at SummerSlam, especially if there's a fucked up referee finish at Great Balls of Fire and Joe gets screwed out of the title. Maybe Kurt Angle inserts himself as a special guest referee in that rematch at SummerSlam, and then you've got the possibility of Kurt Angle turning heel or something like that. Who knows? Or prior to Great Balls of Fire, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Kurt Angle gets choked out by Samoa Joe. Don't forget their history in TNA. I know WWE will never acknowledge that. They don't really need to. The fans know. And I think it will be interesting enough to see Kurt Angle maybe get choked out by Samoa Joe in the build to his match with Brock. I think that could be really interesting as well. So when you look at this match on paper, it's fun, it's intriguing, it's interesting, and it allows WWE a plethora of options of things to do here as far as how they build this match and how they book the match itself and how far it goes beyond Great Balls of Fire. Is this this a one-off? Are these guys one and done? Or if they're going to do a finish that allows for a rematch at Summerslam if the Braun Strowman plans are now off the table. Hell, Braun Strowman could even interfere in this thing. Who's to say he doesn't do that? I'm not sure if it would make much sense for him to do that since his current feud is with Roman Reigns, but if they're trying to get out of this match without beating either guy and maybe having some sort of a rematch, you know, all the different scenarios that I laid out, another one could be outside interference. Maybe Braun Strowman returns to the WWE in the middle of that match, fucks the whole thing up, and tries to demand a match with Brock Lesnar. And then Kurt Angle comes out and fixes the situation. Who knows, maybe makes a three-way or some shit at SummerSlam. So there's literally hundreds of different things they could do. And I'm, for once, am interested to see it. And for once, I'm excited to tune in to Monday Night Raw to see what happens next week, because Brock Lesnar will be on Raw next week and he will have a confrontation with Samoa Joe. As far as I know, right now, I'm going to be off this Monday. So hopefully I still will be, and I'll be able to be home and live tweet during that show, because that should be a lot of fun. But I'm really excited to see what the first confrontation between Samoa Joe and Brock Lesnar is like. And I want to know if Brock's going to get put in chokehold or if Samoa Joe is going to get F5'd, because you would have to think that one of those two things will most likely happen. And of course, later on Raw, in the main event, Samoa Joe did defeat Seth Rollins via chokeout. They had a pretty good match. I mean, Samoa Joe was pretty dominant in that match, but Seth had a lot of good offense too, and I was enjoying it. And then I think Seth is like up on the top rope, and then Bray Wyatt's music hits, or, you know, the little black and white thing flashes on the screen, the lights go out, they come back on, Seth Rollins is looking around for Bray Wyatt, can't find him, and then gets caught from behind and locked in the coquina clutch by Samoa Joe and gets choked out, and Joe wins. So that's good. Joe needs to win everything he does leading up to Great Balls of Fire and leading up to his match with Brock. He cannot be losing right now, and knocking off a big star like Seth Rollins is perfect for him, especially the fact that they added Bray Wyatt into that, distracting Seth Rollins, allowing Samoa Joe to beat him, so it doesn't completely kill Seth Rollins either. But the weirdest thing about that was Bray Wyatt's involvement to begin with. I thought WWE could have come up with something better than Bray, because Bray, as far as I know, is supposed to be feuding with Finn Balor. I thought Finn was going to be his next opponent. I thought they were going to have a match at Great Balls of Fire. Now maybe Seth Rollins is going to work with Bray. I have no fucking idea what's going on there. So maybe we'll get some more explanation on that next week, and maybe even Seth Rollins and Finn Balor kind of team up to take on Bray Wyatt. Maybe they join forces to battle this nut job. I kind of like the relationship between Seth Rollins and Finn Balor. As a matter of fact, I just watched the other night the Finn Balor WWE 24 special on the network. I had not yet seen that. I know it's been out for a little while. And it was great. It was just as good as the Seth Rollins one, like the year before. But just seeing all that footage and getting to know Finn Balor like that was so good. And what was ironic is that he found himself in rehab at the Performance Center with Seth Rollins, because, of course, when Samoa Joe came in to Monday Night Raw and joined the main roster, he choked out Seth Rollins and injured his knee. And Seth was going through rehab right as Finn Balor was finishing his rehab up. So they spent a lot of time together. They focused on that in the documentary. I thought it was really cool. So maybe if Seth Rollins and Finn Balor can kind of form a little bit of an alliance, or at least be on good terms with each other, and can battle Bray Wyatt back and forth between the two of them, and maybe we get a triple threat or something like that at Great Balls of Fire. I have no idea. And speaking of Bray, going all the way back to the beginning, rewinding the show all the way back to the opening match, he had a great match with Roman Reigns. I know Roman Reigns won, and I know that sucks, but as an opening match, I thought it was great. And it had a lot of good spots. I mean, these guys just tore it up, and we've seen this match a million times. We've seen it on pay-per-view. These guys had a long feud, a year or two ago or something like that. So Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt is not something rare, something that we don't often see, but man, that match was good. And Roman Reigns won in the end with a spear. I swear, the crowd thought the match was so good that people that would normally boo Roman Reigns, I think a few of them popped during the finish because the match was that good. So I was happy to see that match in the beginning of the show, them getting it out of the way early, and it being a surprisingly good match, and one that the crowd and myself were both into. So Bray Wyatt, it does suck what's happened to him. This guy was WWE champion at WrestleMania. Now he's right back to where he was. Mid-level talent, semi-mid card, but really not much of a threat on the main roster as far as the world title goes. I mean, let's face it, he wasn't even in the running to win that Fatal 5-Way. Nobody had picked Bray Wyatt. I don't think one single person anywhere picked Bray Wyatt, which is pretty amazing considering the guy was WWE champion like 2 or 3 months ago, and he's completely ruled out. to be the new number 1 contender on Monday Night Raw and face Brock Lesnar. Nobody picked him at all. So I think it's a shame what has happened to him, and maybe he could use a change. I still think we could see a Bray Wyatt face turn sometime in the future. Maybe he needs to reform the Wyatt family, or maybe a new Wyatt family. Maybe he needs a faction. I don't know what he needs, but WWE needs to, I don't know, I guess just utilize the guy a little bit better. I hate saying that. I hate sounding like I know better than WWE creative teams and shit like that, but they've essentially been doing the same thing with Bray Wyatt ever since he came into the company. He has a few bright moments. He had a cup of coffee with the WWE title. He's beaten some big stars here or there. He's defeated a John Cena. He's defeated a Roman Reigns from time to time, but really overall, this guy is just not a credible threat anymore in the WWE, and it's sad, and it sucks. So hopefully Bray Wyatt can be back to being a major player and a title contender here at some point. Otherwise, we're just going to see the same shit from Bray indefinitely. The other big angle on Raw was a hilarious one. This whole thing started out with the Drifter. He's in the ring singing, and Dean Ambrose interrupts his song and attacks him and kicks his ass and throws him out of the outside of the ring, and then starts cutting a promo on The Miz. Dean Ambrose is pissed off that he lost the Intercontinental title the way he did at Extreme Rules, and he's demanding a rematch and all this shit. And Miz comes up on the Titantron. He goes, "You're not going to get your rematch tonight. I've got my big Intercontinental title celebration party planned for later on, and the last thing I'm going to be doing is wrestling your dumbass." And then when he's done with his promo, the Drifter is able to sneak back in the ring and attack Dean Ambrose and nail him with his swinging neckbreaker finisher to kind of get the last laugh. Backstage, Dean Ambrose is walking through the hallways there holding his neck, pissed off, and he runs into Kurt Angle, who basically sends him home. Kurt Angle says, "I'm not asking you, I'm telling you to leave the building. You're too pissed off, you're too unhinged, and I don't want you causing any more problems tonight. So get the hell out of here, and I'm ordering you to leave the building." You then fast forward to later on where The Miz does have his big Intercontinental title celebration. There's champagne, there's all these decorations, there's a giant wrapped box on the outside of the ring, there's somebody in a bear costume on the inside of the ring holding a sign that says congratulations. Miz starts cutting his promo and then thanks his wife for all the great accommodations and thanks her for the teddy bear, and then she goes, "I didn't get the teddy bear," and he goes, "Well, I didn't get the teddy bear." So he automatically assumes that Dean Ambrose, of course, must be in the bear costume, and that was really obvious. I like the WWE kind of swerved us a little bit, and I'm curious if the crowd saw where Dean Ambrose truly was. But of course, Miz immediately attacks the bear, hits him with the skull-crushing finale, and rips off the bear mask to show that it's not Dean Ambrose. And I made a comment on Twitter that it would have been really awesome, and they would have done this for sure if this was 1998. In 2017, they're not going to get away with that, but I thought it would be really cool if there was a woman in the bear costume. Because yeah, you're beating the shit out of a woman, but you don't know that you are. The Miz truly thinks that it's Dean Ambrose in that bear costume, so if he attacks the bear, hits it with the skull-crushing finale, rips the mask off, and realizes that it's a woman, holy shit, you talk about heat. So I think they should have done something like that, but WWE probably isn't going to do something like that today, but in the Attitude Era, they sure as shit would have. Hell, if it was the Attitude Era, when Miz realized it was a woman, he would have continued to beat the shit out of her. And then the funniest part comes, because now he's convinced that Dean Ambrose is out there somewhere, and since Maurice said she didn't get the bear, he's starting to assume that she must not have had anything to do with the big box and the big present on the outside of the ring either. So he goes out there and proceeds to kick the shit out of the present. The best is when he dropped the elbow on it. I mean, he tackles it. It looks so fucking funny. I'm literally laughing out loud watching this happen. The Miz tackles the box. He's stomping it. He's hitting it with a chair, and then he's dropping elbows on it. And Maurice is freaking out. She goes, "I bought that for you. I got that for you. What are you doing?" Turns out it was a grandfather clock that the Miz completely destroyed, and there was no Dean Ambrose inside the box, which I found hilarious. So now Miz is pissed off. He's back on the mic. He's ranting and raving inside of the ring. And then right behind him is the cameraman filming this whole thing. And he subtly puts the camera down and takes his hat off. And lo and behold, there's Dean Ambrose. So he was out there the whole time. I never noticed him until he was in the ring. I'm like, oh, there he is. He's the fucking cameraman. But Dean Ambrose kind of looks like a cameraman. He's not the biggest guy. He can kind of blend right in. He didn't need that much of a disguise. He just put a hat on and held the camera in front of his face. And that's all he needed. So I'm curious how many people in the live audience recognized that he was there. I could not get enough of The Miz kicking the shit out of that box on the outside of the ring. I rewound it and watched it again. Fucking great stuff there. So I guess these two are going to continue their feud. Hopefully, The Miz can wrap up this feud and stay the Intercontinental Champion and not drop it again. But you know at Great Balls of Fire, they're going to have some sort of a match, and it will probably be a gimmick match of some kind, since Dean Ambrose lost the title in the way he did with that distraction and the no disqualification stipulation. And maybe it's a no disqualification match. I don't know. I'm sure by next week, Kurt Angle will make some sort of a match between the two at Great Balls of Fire, and some sort of a stipulation will be involved, and that will be the end of that. But the segment on Raw was pretty damn funny. We had a storyline twist in the Enzo and Cass situation. Of course, we've seen Enzo get beat up the past couple of weeks on Raw, and there's been a lot of speculation that it could be the Revival. There's been a lot of speculation that it could be Cass that's turning heel on Enzo. And so WWE then threw us a curveball on Monday night and had Cass be the one to get attacked. And Enzo finds him, and the paramedics are there trying to help out Cass, and there's a gold chain. One of Enzo's gold chains is laying next to Cass. And he holds it and hands it to Enzo, and he goes, "Hey man, whoever attacked me the past 2 weeks, they brought this with them. Certainly you don't think it was me that attacked you, do you?" So now the plot is thickening to where you don't know what the hell they're going to do. And an interesting thought here is that, is it possible that WWE might have these guys turn heel on each other? When you think about it, I was trying to rack my brain. I cannot think of a time in wrestling where they have ever done this. This will definitely be something new. Normally when tag teams split up, one guy turns on the other. This goes all the way back to the beginning of time, even more recently with the Rockers 25 years ago or so, when Shawn Michaels threw Marty Jannetty right through the glass window in the barbershop. What if they both had the same idea? What if Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels both wanted to turn heel that day? And what if they super kicked each other after they hugged, you know? So maybe for the first time ever, we could see tag team partners attacking each other. Cass could be responsible for Enzo getting beat up, and Enzo could be responsible for Cass getting beat up. And then what do? Then who the fuck is the heel and the babyface there? So that is a really unique idea, and I'd like to see where they go with that if they chose to go in that direction. There could also be the argument that one of them is faking. Maybe Cass faked this whole thing just to get the heat off of him. Maybe he feels that the fans and Corey Graves are onto him. They know what he's up to. They're suspecting that he's the one attacking Enzo, so maybe he set something up to where he gets attacked, because don't forget, we never saw either one of these guys get attacked. You just saw the aftermath. So it's very possible that Cass set the whole thing up and it was all faked. And maybe they do a couple more things in the next couple of weeks on Raw and the whole thing comes to a head and we're about to get answers. And that's when we get the big turn. So at least we have options now. At least it's not so cut and dry. You've got the Revival, you've got Cass, and now you also have Enzo all being suspects in these attacks. And it's very possible that it turns out to be somebody completely different. Maybe Enzo and Cass are both innocent the whole time, and it's a completely different person or persons attacking these two guys. Who knows? But at least now, after what we saw on Raw, the whole story is not totally obvious. At least now there are a few different ways they could go here, and we really don't know what the end result is going to turn out to be. And incidentally, Cass and Enzo were supposed to have a match against Gallows and Anderson. Cass could not compete because he got his ass kicked, so Enzo replaces him with the Big Show, and they go out there and beat Gallows and Anderson. And then there's another confrontation backstage with Cass. He even accuses the Big Show of being the one to attack them because we haven't seen the Big Show in a few weeks. And all of a sudden he's here now and winning matches on Raw, and Big Show is like, "Look at me, I'm 7 foot tall and I'm 500 pounds. I have no reason to sneak up on anybody. I'll come right at you, right to your face if I want to attack you." So, I'm still leaning towards the Cass heel turn here. I'm still leaning towards the fact that this is all an elaborate ruse. And now he's staging himself getting attacked to try to throw the fans off. That's probably where they're going, but that's definitely not for sure. And anything can happen at this point. So I'm curious to see where they go with this as well in the next couple of weeks. Alexa Bliss was forced to defend her women's title against Nia Jax. She was backstage with Kurt Angle, and she had this idea for a new segment on Raw called This Is My Life, where it's going to be this big tribute to her. And Kurt Angle is like, "Are you out of your mind?" And he acknowledged the fact that the previous week's This Is Your Life segment was one of the worst Monday Night Raw segments in history. Said that right to Alexa Bliss's face on TV. So at least WWE is aware that they gave us a big steaming turd with that This Is Your Life segment, and hopefully they will never do that again. And Kurt says to Alexa, "You did promise Nia Jax a title match once you were done with Bayley. So now that you're done with Bayley, I think you need to face Nia Jax in a title match." So Alexa is in there very reluctantly. Mickie James and Dana are at ringside laughing at Alexa Bliss because she was backstage in the locker room with them. I can't remember what she said to them. I don't know if she was trying to recruit them to come help her out or something like that, but they basically just came out to the ringside during the match to make fun of her. And Alexa Bliss took advantage of that opportunity and attacked both of them on the outside of the ring, forcing the referee to call for the bell. And technically, Alexa Bliss was able to win via disqualification. And you know that's not going to be the end of this. She's going to have to face Nia Jax again at some point, most likely. Great balls of fire. And as far as Bayley is concerned, she was sent home, or she wasn't able to be at the show, or she went home or stayed home, or whatever they said, basically making it sound like she was sick and couldn't go to school or something like that. And I don't know what they've done with Bayley. I mean, I'm at a loss. I mean, they have completely buried this girl. That match at Extreme Rules was so bizarre. The way it went, I thought for sure Bayley, this person that they've been pushing, she's former women's champion. She was successful at WrestleMania. They had big plans for her, I thought. And now she's being humiliated with Alexa Bliss. And it brought up this one thought. And I do not want to cast dispersions on Bayley. I know I'm probably wrong about this. I'm almost certain I'm wrong about it, because even if it did happen, and WWE might want to keep it quiet, but they would still have no choice but to announce it in some form on their website or whatever. But I started to think that maybe Bayley failed a wellness test. I mean, think about it. What else would explain this downward spiral? And if somebody like Bayley were to fail a wellness policy test, that would completely destroy her character. That would destroy everything that WWE has invested in her. They've invested in her being this childhood WWE fan who dreamt of being a star one day, and they documented her journey, and she went all the way through NXT, all the way to the big stage, winning the title, appearing at WrestleMania, this true heartwarming story, this dream that every single fan has. She has that. Plus, she's very geared towards kids. Her target audience is young girls. She hugs everybody on the way to the ring. She's very nice. She never gets angry. She is just happy and hugs everybody. So if she gets caught doing something she's not supposed to do, or fails a drug test or something, WWE might not have any choice but to try to keep it as quiet as possible. Because if they announce this to the fans, it completely ruins Bayley. A wellness policy violation would hurt Bayley probably worse than any other wrestler out there. Even somebody like Roman Reigns, who we saw last year, got popped. He did his time, he did his punishment, he came back and had to eat a little bit of shit, and he's right back on top, but it really didn't do anything to his character, because he's a little bit more badass of a guy. This Bayley character, this female John Cena, this box of Fruity Pebbles with unicorns in it, is not the type of character that would fail a wellness policy violation, and if she did, they would have to repackage her. Her career would be altered dramatically if Bayley were to ever get in trouble like that, or God forbid a fucking sex tape or something like that comes out on her. They would have to completely revamp her entire character. So in the back of my mind, I was wondering to myself if maybe, just maybe, Bayley violated the wellness policy and they're punishing her quietly and maybe keeping her off TV. They would have to keep her off TV for 4 weeks. They would have to probably write her off TV a little bit better than what they did at Extreme Rules, just having her lose. I think they would have had Alexa just beat the holy shit out of her for 20 straight minutes. That puts her out of action or puts her on the shelf for a month. But that's probably not going to happen. Most likely we'll see Bayley back next week, and this whole wellness policy violation shit is just in my head. And I apologize to Bayley for even speculating that. I know she's a good girl. She's a class act. Everybody loves her. So I hate to even, say something like that. But in the back of my mind, you have to at least suspect it, because what other explanation is there for her dramatic decline? They've ruined her. Think about what WWE has done investing in this woman for the past couple of years, and for her to make it to where she made it and reach the top of the mountain and now fall so dramatically far. I mean, there's no 50-50 booking in this. I was predicting Bayley to win Extreme Rules because of just that reason. WWE's 50-50 booking. Their women's division is not huge to begin with. Now that they've split the rosters, they don't want to have anybody fall too far down. They don't want Bayley to be on Dana Brooke's level. We've even seen Sasha Banks fall from grace recently after her 3 title reigns last year and all the great matches she was having with Charlotte, and her really helping change the women's division in the WWE and being such a big part of that women's revolution. Now she's working with cruiserweight guys and mixed tags. So, maybe they're trying to put Sasha Banks and Bayley a little bit on the back burner in order for them to build new girls, which I'm fine with that. But Bayley really seems like she has gone down dramatically, and her character is not much to be taken seriously anymore, especially the way she got beaten up and shown up in every segment, in every angle leading up to Extreme Rules, and then the match at Extreme Rules itself, she just loses. Straight up clean, Alexa Bliss just beats her ass. So very strange situation there, and I'm not even a big Bayley fan. I don't like her music, I don't like her entrance, I don't like her outfit, I just don't like that character really at all. But I respect the hell out of the girl behind that character, and I think she deserves better than this. So if this winds up leading to a repackage or maybe a change in attitude, maybe WWE doesn't want to change Bayley up completely, but maybe they feel like she needs to be tweaked, this can just be the beginning of that. Maybe they could even go heel with her. I don't know. That would be really tough to do, but that's even an option as well. And maybe all of these losses are leading to that attitude change in Bayley. So it's very possible that these losses turn into something bigger for her, but right now, it ain't looking good for poor Bayley. And she's pretty much been demolished on the main roster, and it's sad. Let's see, what else do I have written down for Raw here? We had Cesaro and Sheamus defeating Heath Slater and Rhino. They cut a promo after the match, bragging about their victory over the Hardy Boys at Extreme Rules. That issue is definitely not over. I think we'll get one more match between those two teams, especially since it was kind of a photo finish at Extreme Rules, so I guess at Great Balls of Fire they're going to do one more, I would assume. TJP and Neville, their angle has been furthered on Raw as well. TJP is backstage talking to Neville, says he wants a title shot. I've been backing you up for the past 2 months. Being at your side, you promised me that if I did that and helped you get by Austin Aries, that you would grant me a title shot. So Neville's like, okay, you're right, I'll go talk to Kurt Angle, but right now you got to go out to the ring and take care of business with Mustafa Ali, which TJP does. He beats Ali, and then he's going back to the ring or heading back up the ramp, and Neville comes out and says that he talked to Kurt Angle, and he goes, it was kind of funny, he goes, I'm afraid I have some unfortunate news. He was sure to use the word unfortunate instead of bad, because if he said, I'm afraid I've got some bad news, the crowd would have popped. So I thought that was pretty funny, but he says he talked to Kurt Angle, and the match is a no-go, and TJP is pissed. He goes, what? That's horseshit. Come on, you and me are going back there to talk to Kurt Angle right now. And TJP turns his back, and then, of course, Neville attacks him and beats the fuck out of him. So I guess that's going to be our next match or our next Cruiserweight title program for Neville. He's going to be working with TJP, the first ever Cruiserweight champion. And I know those matches will be good, but I hope Neville just kills him. I hope Neville just murders the fucking twerp and moves on and holds that belt at least until SummerSlam, maybe beyond. Other than that, just a couple of other things I want to mention about Raw. We had Kalisto beating Titus O'Neil. I'm so sick and uninterested in this whole Titus O'Neil, Apollo Crews, Kalisto storyline that's going on, although I will give it to Kalisto and Apollo for having an awesome kickoff match at Extreme Rules. I never mentioned that in my Extreme Rules reaction video, but those two guys tore the house down on the kickoff, and that was a really good match. But the storyline itself, I don't give a fuck about it, like literally at all. We saw more Goldust old school promos along with an R-Truth promo as well, so those guys are on a collision course at some point. Probably Great Balls of Fire, I'm assuming, and Kurt Angle approached Corey Graves at the announce table during the show as well to talk to him about some more text messages that he got, and of course Corey Graves is the only one that knows what's going on here, and when this whole thing started, I speculated that this has got to be related to Triple H. Maybe Kurt Angle is coming back to the ring, and this is eventually going to lead to that. And I also mentioned that I wouldn't be surprised if Stephanie is involved in this as well. She could be the one sending these text messages out to begin with because, you know, as much as I want this to be something awesome, as much as I like the speculation and who this could be and what this could be pertaining, it really doesn't make any sense given Kurt's reaction for it to be anybody else other than a McMahon, because why would Kurt care? Why would Kurt give two shits what anybody thinks in the wrestling world besides the McMahons? What would scare him to this level? There's nobody that can affect his job at all. So this has got to be Stephanie sending this shit out. This has got to be Triple H sending this shit out. Maybe even Vince McMahon. But right now, just the way Kurt Angle is reacting and how freaked out he is about these text messages, it can only mean a McMahon. So I'm hoping that it doesn't, because I think a McMahon would be boring. It's been really nice having no Stephanie on Raw every week being annoying. It's been great without her, and I'm not really ready to see her come back. I will be at some point. I mean, Stephanie is still a great character, and I do enjoy her, but she can get old quick when she's on TV every single fucking week. And she was just on camera at WrestleMania, and she's been on TV every week prior to that for like over a year or something, or even more if you go all the way back to the Authority days and stuff. So I'm just over Stephanie for the moment. So I understand that she's got to come back at some point, but I was really hoping that this would not be it. But the more and more you think about it, you know, what other explanation could it be? I'm definitely open to suggestions. If you guys can think of somebody that would make more sense than a McMahon, I would love to hear it. Let's move on to SmackDown now. This show wasn't nearly as noteworthy as Raw. I felt like we had a lot to touch on as far as Raw goes, but SmackDown opened up with Shane unveiling the women's Money in the Bank briefcase. He's got all the competitors out there. Naomi even comes out there to join the fray, to flaunt her title in everybody's face or whatever. I didn't really pay much attention to what anybody was saying. But they lowered the briefcase down from the ceiling, and it's got a cover on it, and then Shane unveils it, and it's just maybe a little bit smaller. It's white with a gold handle. Doesn't really look that much different than the men's, but maybe just a tiny bit more feminine. And the best part is that Lana comes out. Lana finally makes her debut, and I will say this about Lana. I like her new theme music. It's very catchy. So I think that part of her gimmick is very good, but she comes out in an evening gown, which just looked ridiculous, and she basically comes in the ring and tells Shane McMahon that she wants in this match. She says Naomi can't compete in this match because she's champion, but I can. And Shane McMahon says, no, you've never even had a match, and you have to earn your opportunities here. And when Lana says that she should be in the match, all the girls start no-selling it. They just start laughing their asses off. Like, Lana is a complete fucking joke. They're like, you've never even had a singles match. You've had like one match, a tag team match, a long time ago. This girl's never even been in the ring, and she's got no business in that Money in the Bank ladder match, and I agree. But then it gets really stupid, because then they go to a 6-women match with the Welcoming Committee, Natty and Carmella and Tamina. They beat Becky Lynch, Charlotte, and Naomi when Lana interferes. So Naomi is pissed, and backstage, she goes to Shane McMahon and demands a match with Lana at Money in the Bank, and she goes, I don't even care if I have to put my title on the line. I just want a match with her. So Shane grants it. So in one breath, earlier on in the show, he's saying, Lana, you cannot be in a match that can give you an opportunity to wrestle for the title because you have to earn that, but I'll give you a title match itself. What fucking sense does that make? And I swear to fucking God, if Lana takes that title from Naomi, I will shit a brick. That would be horseshit. I love Lana. She's hot. She's awesome. Maybe if she gets in the ring a little bit, maybe she'll get better. She's obviously taking over the same gimmick that they wanted to do with Emma. She's almost a cross between Emelina and Eva Marie. So Lana winning the belt would definitely get her some heat, but almost like the wrong kind of heat. The fans would hate her. They would fucking hate her if she beats Naomi. So hopefully that won't happen, but God, it kind of makes you nervous that it will. And I'll tell you what, man, if it did, Lana's the one you would need to cash it in on. Just say for argument's sake that somehow Lana scores some crazy ass out of nowhere victory over Naomi at Money in the Bank. And let's say that match happens after the Money in the Bank ladder match itself. You would think that whoever wins that Money in the Bank briefcase would need to cash in on Lana. That's your best opportunity because Lana is a weak link. And now you got a weak champion. She should be easy pickings for whoever wins that briefcase. So I'm curious the order of the matches. I'm curious if they're going to have Naomi and Lana first and then the Money in the Bank ladder match. That way the Money in the Bank briefcase winner doesn't have an opportunity to cash it in, at least at that pay-per-view. So Naomi kind of comes off a little bit dumb here. I mean, I understand she wants to get her hands on Lana, but can't she just kick the shit out of her in catering or something? She has to go as far as demanding a match with her, and she said she'll put her title on the line on the same pay-per-view that a Money in the Bank match is taking place. She's basically offering herself up to lose the title. She essentially has two chances to lose the title depending on the placement of her match with Lana. So it's kind of a weird situation, but all I know is Lana better not win that fucking belt or I will lose my shit. Our WWE champion, Jinder Mahal, scored a victory on SmackDown. He beat Mojo Rawley. Mojo's backstage telling Shane that he wants in the Money in the Bank match, and Shane says, all right, if you go out there and beat Jinder tonight, I'll let you in the match. But that was not to be, and Mojo lost, thank God. I was really worried that Randy Orton would interfere and cost Jinder Mahal the victory and grant Mojo entry into the Money in the Bank match, but I didn't want to see that. Jinder Mahal's got to win his matches right now. I know it's very common, it's very popular in storylines for a champion to lose to a lesser opponent because of a distraction from the current guy that he's in a program with. I know that shit we see all the time, and I'm really glad that the WWE did not do it. I think we just saw Randy Orton cut a backstage promo during SmackDown. That's all we got out of Randy. So he, of course, has got his rematch with Jinder at Money in the Bank, but I'm really glad that Jinder was able to get a victory against Mojo Rawley on SmackDown. AJ Styles got a victory as well, getting his victory back from Dolph Ziggler because, of course, Dolph beat him last week in the main event. So this match was also pretty good, and AJ was able to defeat Dolph, and good for AJ. I'm a big AJ fan, and I hope his days as being a WWE title contender are not over either, and I wouldn't mind at all if AJ won that briefcase. We had more Breezango brilliance. They're, of course, in their little detective office there. And the best part about these vignettes is the bulletin board. I cannot get enough of the bulletin board and all the little funny notes and sayings, you know, like repeat offender. And I mean, there's so many of them. Just pause the screen and go back and look at that segment, and the bulletin board cracks me up. It does every week. And they're confronted this week by the New Day, which is funny because New Day is like coming down the aisle with their ice cream truck, and then they enter the office of Breezango, and then they go in there and they're in black and white, and they're looking at their skin. They're like, what the fuck's going on? Everything's in black and white. So I kind of got a kick out of that. And I guess they're there to ask Breezango's help for a case with the Usos. They want all the dirt and they want all the information on the Usos that they can get. So Breezango gives them a couple of boxes of shit like that, the wig that Tyler Breeze wore and everything that they did in their angle with them. I think they had one of their sweatshirts, that One Day is H shirt, which they keep saying. And then they started talking about colognes or the colognes cologne or some shit like that. Basically, the New Day ended up having a match with the colognes and they won. And the Usos came out after the match and cut a promo on them on the stage, hyping their match at Money in the Bank, because of course they'll be wrestling for the tag team titles at that pay-per-view. And then in the main event, we saw Shinsuke Nakamura beat Kevin Owens again. So Shinsuke's pinned him a few times now on TV. Kevin Owens, incidentally, has a broken thumb. I did see that on Twitter. He's not missing any ring time because he's awesome. He's just got his thumb in a little cast thingy, and he's working right through it, which is pretty cool. And their match on Smackdown was good, but Kevin Owens lost again to Shinsuke. Now, Baron Corbin is out there on commentary. Earlier on in the night, he beat the hell out of Sami Zayn backstage. So I don't know what the hell he was doing out there for commentary during this match, but after the match, he attacked Shinsuke, laying him out with his finisher, and the show goes off the air with Baron Corbin standing tall. So that's pretty much your Smackdown in a nutshell. Wasn't a bad show. There were some good things on it, but Raw, in my mind, was a million times better than Smackdown, at least this week. I would also like to send out my well wishes to Harley Race. Great wrestling legend, of course, was involved in a horrific accident at his home just a few days ago, and he broke both of his legs, had to go undergo emergency surgery to fix them, and he's like 74 years old, and it's just awful. Harley Race is one of my favorite old school wrestlers of all time. I have his book. I highly recommend picking it up. It's dirt cheap. You can find it on Amazon or eBay or something like that, and I've read it, and it's great stuff. I have a lot of memories of Harley Race growing up as a kid when he was NWA champion and all the great feuds and matches he had with guys like Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes. The guy's an absolute legend, and it's heartbreaking to hear about stuff like this, especially somebody of that age. You know, that's just a mess. My grandmother, before she passed away, she was 90, and she was in her home, and she fell and she broke her leg in her house, and she lived all by herself. And she's very short, and she fell on the ground, and she couldn't get up, and she couldn't get to the phone. She couldn't reach the phone because it was up on the counter. So she crawled herself into the living room and was able to get up on the couch, and she laid in there for like 2 days before a neighbor finally knocked on the door, and she was yelling from the couch, "Come help me." So she laid there with a broken leg with that pain at 90 years old for nearly 2 days before somebody found her. It was one of the most heartbreaking things my family has ever gone through. And of course, she went through surgery and she got herself back up on her feet, and she lived another 5 years before she finally passed away. But, you know, whenever somebody older like that, 70s, 80s, 90s, they suffer broken bones, they break their hips a lot. It's just heartbreaking to see things like that happen because, you know, you feel for them, the suffering that they're going through, the pain that they're going through. And I don't even know how Harley fell. I don't know if it was down a flight of stairs or what. I didn't read any details on this. All I know is that he fell and broke both of his legs, which is just horrifying. So anyway, get well soon, Harley Race. You're an all-time legend, and I wish you nothing but the best and a speedy recovery. And finally, after many, many, many requests, I will finally acknowledge all this YouTube shit that's been going on. Now, I'm not going to inform you guys of anything you don't already know, but basically, in a nutshell, what has happened is that wrestling content on YouTube has fallen under the not advertiser-friendly umbrella. Somehow, people that do what I do are starting to lose their ad revenue and lose their advertising. Now, I still monetize all my videos, but mine have dropped, about 70%. I mean, I only make a few bucks a video now, where normally I can make 20 or more, or sometimes, even over 100 if my video has enough views on it. So, ad revenue is a big part of how YouTubers make their money, and career YouTubers rely on that, and now everybody's starting to push their Patreon channels really hard. They're starting to look for other avenues to release their content. Even Eric Bischoff has stepped into the fray. A lot of you guys have told me that I should contact Eric Bischoff because he's got a new website where he's putting up a bunch of wrestling podcasters, and a lot of them aren't that huge. Some of them are not that much bigger than me. So if I contact him or DM him or email him or tweet him or something, maybe I can be a part of that. But as far as YouTube goes, it is royally fucking over a lot of us. Now, although I'm very happy with some of the money I make on YouTube, it by no means is a major part of my income. I don't rely on it. It's nice to have this extra money, but I don't treat this as a job, or I don't rely on the income for this to support myself, is basically what I'm saying. I definitely treat it like a job. But who I really feel for are the bigger guys out there. Specifically channels like What Culture, who have gotten royally fucked. Their content is very family friendly, definitely not offensive in any way, no hate speech whatsoever. And of course, they've started up a wrestling company. They've been primarily airing their shows on YouTube live for free for all the fans. And now with these new monetization rules, it has drastically fucked over their ability to continue this promotion. They've had to cancel shows. They've had to completely rework their entire schedule now and come up with different ideas, and might have to abandon the process altogether because of these crazy new rules that YouTube is following. And I guess this was all stemming from some hate speech, which I know from surfing around YouTube. I don't really watch anybody else's channels. I watch some of the bigger ones, and I watch people that I consider colleagues of mine. The Deluxe Mans, the Sala Monsters, the Joe Cronins, the JDs, guys like that I consider, true YouTubers, true professionals. But there's a lot of smaller channels out there that are just jerk-offs. You just click on it and it's nothing but hate, and it's nothing but fuck and shit and damn and faggot and all this crazy-ass language where I'm just like, God damn, grow the fuck up. Grow up. What are you, 5? Talking like this? They're so inarticulate, and they're so hateful, and they're so miserable in everything that they say. If people in charge of YouTube stumble across these asshole channels, they might say, yeah, all wrestling fans are fucking crazy. We don't want our advertisers giving us heat, so we need to make this shit not advertiser friendly before some of these companies come down on us for promoting their product on a video filled with hate speech or racism or offensive language and shit like that. So the immaturity in a lot of the wrestling audience is definitely there, and I'm not going to deny that. So if YouTube has to make a drastic decision like this, I almost understand it. It's just I wish it could be on a case-by-case basis. I wish there was enough people working for YouTube that could comb through these videos and determine if they felt like their content is not advertiser friendly or not, instead of just blanketing the entire wrestling community with this new rule and deeming all wrestling content not advertiser friendly, because that's when the big channels that actually do things right and are respectful and are professional, they're getting fucked over. That's not fair. It's not fair for What Culture to lose all of their fucking revenue. It's not fair for Grimm's Toy Show or anybody else that really relies on their channel and gives fun content to their audience. They are getting screwed over, probably because of smaller YouTubers who are such dickheads out there and ruining it for everybody. So it fucking sucks. And, and wrestling fans are not the only one using hate speech. There's a lot of that going on YouTube on a number of topics, whether it's sports, whether it's politics. No matter where you go on YouTube, you are always going to find somebody bitching and moaning like an asshole about something. So, I'm guilty of that years ago. I remember going on rants, and I remember one time wishing Hulk Hogan dead, like 6-7 years ago. That's really not me. It's just when I first started YouTube, I noticed that a lot of the channels that were getting attention had very, very strong opinions. And that's really not myself. I try to look at everything fairly. I try to look at things from both sides, but early on I was realizing that those type of videos weren't getting the views, weren't getting the attention. You had to have pretty hardcore opinions at least to get noticed, and that's how I did get noticed. And then I toned things down as years went by. But as bad as I ever was, I was never as bad as some of the shit that I see on YouTube now. And so I think it's wrong that credible YouTubers like myself and a lot of other people that are my size or bigger are getting hurt by this, and especially the major channels out there, the What Cultures and people like that, who are losing all of their ad revenue because YouTube is run by a bunch of fucking idiots. I mean, there's been petitions. Did you guys see that petition that was going around that everybody signed? It's got, I don't know, 20,000 or so, maybe more, signatures on it, trying to beg YouTube to take a look at this. This is not fair to a lot of people. And if you're going to make some sort of a decision like this, it needs to be reworked. It needs to be done better. You know, if you want to place restrictions on videos, you need to look at that video and make sure that something on that video actually needs to be restricted. I mean, what could you possibly see on one of What Culture's What Just Happened videos following a pay-per-view that could be considered offensive? I mean, what? Nothing. Not a goddamn thing. But they are now making virtually no money off of their videos because of this stuff. And that one video that they posted showing Rey Mysterio versus Alberto Del Rio from one of their shows had like over 1 million views, and they made $40. $40. My CM Punk video that I did after he went on Colt Cabana's podcast like 3 years ago, I've made almost $300 on that video. And it only has like 100,000, maybe 150,000 views, something like that. We're talking about 1 million views, over 1 million views, and they get $40. Are you fucking kidding me? And now you're seeing everybody scramble. You know, I've been trying to plug my Patreon channel a little bit more now too, and I need to do more with the Patreon channel. And everybody who does support me there, I really appreciate it. I only have a handful of supporters, maybe a dozen. And I don't want to be the guy that kind of begs for patrons or anything like that, because I know now as fans, as an audience who watches all these content creators on YouTube, you're getting Patreon shoved down your throats now because everybody's panicking. And what I don't want to see is really good YouTubers out there. Somebody like Brian Zane, somebody that makes a pretty decent living from these YouTube channels, have to consider quitting this because it's robbing the fans of everything too. And I think you're going to see that. I think you're going to see a lot of semi-big YouTube channels, 50,000 to 200,000 subscribers. They might start quitting because it's just not worth it anymore. For me, I'm going to continue plugging along. If I made $3,000 in ad revenue last year, I'll probably just make half that or less this year. No big deal. I can survive, and I want to continue to do this because I enjoy it. But if I was relying on this money and that money went away, I would be in full-blown fucking panic mode right now, and I'd be pretty pissed off. And, you know, it might have to be a decision that you might have to quit because you have to support yourself. You have to support your family. And if YouTube isn't going to provide you with that support anymore, you might have to go out and find a different job, which will limit the amount of time that you can spend giving your audience content on YouTube. So the whole thing is just a fucking mess, and it's sad because I've enjoyed YouTube. YouTube's one of my favorite websites. I love being on it. I love watching what other creators do. I love my channel and my interactions with all the fans, and it's allowed me to engage with all of you and get to know you and do Q&As and talk about wrestling. And I feel like I've just got, you know, when I come home and I work on a commentary or I talk to all of you, I feel like I'm just sitting in a room with 15,000 of my friends chatting about wrestling, and that's what I like about it. So I don't want YouTube to go away. I hope YouTube rises from the ashes. A lot of people have been claiming that YouTube is dead, and they're changing their policies and changing some of the stuff that they're interested in, being more geared towards TV. YouTube TV is about to launch. It's already launched in some places. I do not have it in San Diego yet, but I plan on getting it because it's supposed to be $35 for a shitload of cable channels. So as soon as that's available here, I'm canceling my cable and I'm doing that. But, you know, YouTube has people, you know, in their bedrooms with a webcam making shitty quality videos to full-blown TV shows. So YouTube is a very diverse variety of content creators. You have people that have an audience of 50, and then you have people who have an audience of 50 million. So there's a lot of people out there, and maybe YouTube wants to weed out some of the smaller channels, which doesn't bode well for me. I mean, I'm only at 15,000 or so subscribers, so if they don't want me around anymore, what the fuck am I going to do? Go over to Dailymotion or something? Fuck that. You know, YouTube is where all the traffic is. YouTube is where everybody sees you, and if at all possible, I would like not to have to leave YouTube. Luckily, people can still find me on my website, and they can find me on Stitcher Radio and iTunes, and there's a lot of other places that other content creators can go, especially if you have a podcast like me. You can go on Podbean and all these other sites, so it's not like you can't get your stuff out there, but YouTube really gives you a good audience, and it's free, and it's user-friendly, and the analytics are very detailed, and you get to see what your audience is doing, where they're from, how they're watching you, how they're engaging you, how long they're watching you. I really enjoy the whole YouTube experience, and to me, it bums me out that this is such such a problem, and it sucks. So whatever's going on with YouTube, I hope that they get their shit together and work it out, because it can affect so many people. I mean, even my videos. I'm on TV Tracks right now. They put my clips up all the time, and they're another one of those channels that I would assume their ad revenue is being drastically affected, and I don't want to see them quit, because my involvement on that channel helps me get subscribers. Every time they post a handful of my videos, I get a handful of new subscribers. So me being a part of TV Tracks is a big deal for a YouTuber my size, because it's exactly the type of publicity I need. But if it doesn't become worth it for them to do it anymore, then they might have to quit. So, you know, this potential problem here, this could have catastrophic consequences if it gets worse or it does not get fixed. So YouTube, please use your head here. You got to realize that not all wrestling content creators are bad. As a matter of fact, I believe there are far more good ones than there are bad ones, especially some of the bigger channels. And I always try to conduct myself in a very professional way. I might have some strong opinions here or there, but I don't believe I cross any lines. And I usually try to remain fair and try to look at both sides of every story and try not to be too much of a dick. Sometimes I fail at that, but I think most of the times I succeed at that. And it's not only unfair to me, but it's unfair to every other credible YouTuber out there that enjoys doing this and relies on it in some cases for a living. So YouTube, get your act together and revisit this issue, because you are really screwing over a lot of really good content creators. So anyway, that's my opinion on that. I've said my piece. You guys have been asking me my opinion on this for literally the past 2 months now, and I haven't said much about it. So there you go. So anyway, I'm out of here. I am going to get back to working on the Q&A. Still a couple of weeks away from getting that thing up. It'll be up mid-June or whatever. I'm going to shoot for the 15th, but no promises on that. Might be a day or two after that, but that at least is my goal right now. So I'm going to spend the rest of the week working on that, and you will not hear from me again until next week's Raw and Smackdown review, unless something crazy happens over the weekend or something that I need to come up and do an impromptu commentary on. If anything like that takes place, you will hear from me. Otherwise, I will catch you next week for episode 434. You guys have a great rest of your week. Take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you soon. Until next time, peace.